Okay, so I have to ask the question, does life get a little harder as we age, as we get older? Or is it just different seasons, I guess, where we encounter some different struggles? Hi, I'm Carvel Monroe, and welcome to this production that I call The Pinch. I initially started this or piloted the first episode that I called Cross the Waters, and it's just the title of a song that I wrote based on the scripture that talks about the difficulty of when you go through those hard places. It says when you pass through the waters, meaning the currents of life that takes you, want to move you around and sometimes give you the impression that you're about to drown. Anyhow, on this particular episode, I kind of want to move forward and I want to talk about upside down is what I call it, because sometimes the learning in a sense is kind of inverted. It's kind of like when you're younger, you take an introductory course, or at some point in your life, you might take a very foundation course to something, right? An introductory course to something, and you can pick whatever subject it is. And typically in an introductory course, it's not very deep. It shouldn't be anyhow. It's supposed to be designed in such a way that you probably, learn the history of something. You do a little survey just to get the backdrop. You probably know how it got started and how it evolved over time. And then it might goes into a few things, some specialties, or in a sense that how it became what it is, something like that. But an introductory course doesn't really take one particular subject and go real deep in on it, right? It doesn't dive real deep and break it down and, just provide this deeper layer of understanding or a higher form of learning, right? So anyhow, for this particular production called The Pinch, I wanted to just take my time and work through these hard places that we deal with. And hopefully it might help somebody out there who, when you encounter those hardships, and I said when, because we all do, and those hardships look different and they feel different, right? And we shouldn't be ashamed of those hardships, those hard places that I call the pinch. It's like a squeeze, you're being pinched. And no matter sometimes what you try or what you do, what your knowledge, your skill is, you don't really get out of all these hardships or hard places so quickly. Now, some do, and some you don't. There's some things you can get out of right away or pretty quickly. And there's some things that is just time and chance and working at it, and you chip away at it to emerge. And so I want us to kind of just relax, in a sense, to have the kind of approach that hardships are part of life. These pinch that we go through, they're going to occur. And I think what's happened to me over time, I've developed some sort of a calm, a rest in it. Not trying to say I don't, from time to time, may want to panic or cry out or frantically do all that I can do within my power to get out of it. But there still is a certain level of just rest in it. And so anyhow, so today I'm kind of diving into this part that I want to talk about. Upside down is what I call it, because it kind of feels like you have to look at what you're going through from a different perspective. Because our culture, we love wins. We love to talk about wins. And I myself have done a couple shows on wins, right? Because everybody wants a winner. We all seem to love a winner, somebody who succeeds, people who are able to manifest or birth ideas, people who are able to bring businesses or whatever they have done to bring their claim to fame. They've been successful at it. Our countries will elect them and put them in offices because they see them as smart people. But wins is not, and success and those kind of things, it's not the things that are outward appearance that would outwardly look like really good all the time. Very rarely we talk about those successes, if you want to call it that, of just managing those hardships, those pinches. Because like I said, sometimes you cannot get out of them quick enough for you to pat yourself on the back or for someone else to pat you on the back. Because in these pinches that you go through, it's almost as if that's the real training, or it's a totally different kind of a training. where you get to develop your personality, your character. Your grit is that worldly term we like to use, grit. But it's old-fashioned perseverance, I like to say. It's perseverance. It's being able to sustain something for a long time, right? And just kind of, it's almost like that resistance training. If you've ever been to the gym or have seen a video of some sort of somebody putting rubber bands on them, or they're adding additional restriction as they do an exercise, lift a weight, or move a muscle part, they put bands and it creates extra resistance, and it kind of looks foolish depending on who's looking, but they're doing it for a reason. It's added to the difficulty. And we go through these phases of life that look differently, and it's as if our trainer, our unseen trainer, our master coach puts a little bit more resistance in our life that we have to work with in order to get through. And there's no circumventing it, really, because it can look differently. And in that perseverance, you get cultivated, because then you're able to get it done without turning evil. People can go through hardships and turn evil, but I'm talking about the kind where you go through and you're not turning evil in the process, right? When I say that, what comes to mind immediately is young Anakin who Obi-Wan says, you were the chosen one, but he went through so much hardships he went through, young Annie, that he eventually gave in to the dark side. Now, we know that's just super, very creative way of storytelling in Hollywood. However, we have to be able to go through some difficulties without turning evil. Not give in, as Job was counseled, or it suggested to Job in the scripture, when his wife said, curse God and die. You're holding on to your integrity, right? That's almost like if Job would have done that, he would have turned evil. So we have to find a way to go through these things and not turn evil, not snap on the people around us. Because people go through hardships all the time, but some of them snap. And they snap on the people around them. They snap on their loved ones. So as you and I, when you get to that place, and if you are in that place, see this as a win, to be able to sustain that hardship, be in that place of a pinch, and not succumb to the pressure, around you, to be outside of the character that's expected of you. Also, I want to say this: you can be in a hard pinch, a hard place, and you can give in a way where you stop fighting. You give in, and that's another way of succumbing. You may not snap on anybody, you might not turn evil, but you don't want to give in, where you stop trying, you stop fighting, you stop hoping and believing and expecting. That's also not a good place to be in, right? And things come to mind with that, but let me just keep moving on. So I spend this time here because it's very important. And if you don't hear conversations on this, then you might be tempted to believe you are doing something wrong when you find yourself in that place. We've seen time and time again in life and from real life scenarios, but we can see also from what was written in the scripture can happen outside of your control. And that's perfectly fine. We have to get to that mindset. It's perfectly fine. Everything is not because of wrongdoing or error. Some of it is just part of the training. And so you have to use a different grade book if you're going to count it as a win, as a success. And I say a different grade book because you make sure you're not comparing two different things. Because in this scenario, when you're in a pinch such as this, the grade book is different. We're not looking for, let's just say, this one is not about academics. This one is about that character trait, as I've said. And to pass this test, you have to be able to do some of those things, as I mentioned, not turning evil, not snapping on people around you, not succumbing to hopelessness either, where you just give up and you stop trying, stop believing, and stop working towards. In this case, things are kind of upside down, where on the external or the outside, you are wasting away. But internally, you're being renewed. That's the grade book. It's to be renewed while you can't do nothing on the outside. That is a plus, right? Because that is what you are learning. That is what you are training for right now, if you want to put it that way. If you're in the season sometimes and you're wondering why it's lasted so long, or it's continued so long, it's because maybe the grade book here too is, wait a minute, it's not about finding my way out. It's not about calling 2 or 3 friends and finding the solution, so to speak, right? The solution is getting that character just right, where now you're able to achieve at the next level true success.